This video is a discussion about the practical application of Lean Six Sigma, a quality improvement process that dramatically improves flow in the value stream and eliminates waste. To be precise, Lean brings speed, action, and common sense to problem solving with rapid improvement activities. Six Sigma uses a powerful framework, DMAIC, which stands for Define, Measure, and Analysis, Improve and Control, and statistical tools to uncover root causes that understand and reduce variation. We are fortunate to have Dr. Ozgur Ekmekci join us today. Dr. Ekmekci currently serves as an assistant professor at the Department of Clinical Research and Leadership within the School of Medicine and Health Sciences at the George Washington University. He teaches courses on leadership, organizational change, research methods, and healthcare management. His research interests include organizational identification, quality and safety, process improvement, temporality, and agent-based modeling. He has a bachelor's degree in electrical engineering and a master's degree in business administration. His doctoral degree is in human and organizational learning. He is also certified as a Six Sigma Lean Sensi Green Belt and Myers-Briggs type trainer. He is a member of the Academy of Management, the Reputation Institute, and CPP Incorporated. He serves on the editorial board of Society for Advancement of Management. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to talk with us today, Dr. Ekmekci.
Thank you, Brenda. That is my pleasure. And I want to take this opportunity to share with our viewers some of the key elements of Lean Six Sigma, as you have mentioned, and expand on that and build on some of my experiences in the private sector outside of the university, which may give a different dimension in terms of better understanding where the concept comes from. As many of you may know, Six Sigma is grounded in the production process of goods. So it's a manufacturing-oriented approach to improving quality. And the name itself, maybe it's worth talking a little bit about that, Six Sigma. Mm-hmm. Sigma is the symbol in statistics for designating variation, standard deviation, in other words. And if you think about a distribution, then the sigma becomes the probability curve of encountering certain events within that distribution. And within the Six Sigma approach, when we talk about being 6 sigma away from the mean, we talk about encountering an error, the probability of an error, 6 standard deviations basically away from the mean, which equates to 99.9997% success rate, and only the remaining is failure. Just to give you an idea, this amounts to 3 or maybe 4 occurrences of an error or defects in this case in 1 million items produced. So you can think about how ambitious this is.
Yeah.
And in many cases where we have production processes that are easy to control in terms of the moving parts and the raw material and the labor, this may be achievable. But unfortunately, there are some other events in life where achieving that kind of quality standard is just not feasible or practical. So one has to be mindful as to when Six Sigma may be applied and in what cases it is simply going to be a little impractical. So we have to be mindful of our own capabilities and our own sphere of control when planning Six Sigma. And as you said, this is all about reducing or eliminating, hopefully, waste and improving the flow of whether this is knowledge, if we're in a knowledge production environment, or whether this is improving the quality of the goods, the products, and achieving the 6 standard level. Now, you also mentioned the DMAIC, which is the foundation, the very foundation of the approach, the methodology, and define is a very crucial first step. We need to be able to define what it is that we're trying to improve. And this goes back to root analysis, basically, and trying to think of some tangible outcomes in our organizations that we would like to make better or improve in that sense of the word. And unless we have a clear definition of what it is that we're trying to improve, the rest of the steps are pretty meaningless, because we could be perfect at implementing Six Sigma as an approach, but if we don't define what it is that truly matters in terms of an improvement, we may be wasting our resources, and this thing may succeed within the methodology framework, but it may ultimately fail in terms of improving the outcomes. The second thing is, once we define what it is that we're trying to improve, it is being able to measure it properly. And this requires that we do triangulation when measuring and making sure that we have accurate readings. And measuring also means you have to have properly tuned instruments, calibrated instruments, and that you are consistently measuring the right thing in the right manner all the time. And once you have data captured that way, you can go on to the third step, which is basically analyzing the data and pinpointing areas where there is variation. And as we go back to our initial approach of how we reduce elimination, this is the critical step, understanding the possibilities, the probabilities for improving. And then we go on to the next step, which is actually improving and making it better based on our understanding, knowledge of how we were able to improve it in the first place. Now, it all doesn't stop here. Many companies and organizations fall short at that step because once they improve it, they go back to their old ways of doing things.
Yes. Yeah.
Especially with cultural elements that are not ingrained, institutionalized, it's very easy to slip back into bad habits. So the last step is to really control and make sure that everyone internalizes these principles and truly grasps and understands and digests what it took to improve the whole outcome and make sure that that is sustainable, controllable.
Right, we see that all the time, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's human nature.
Too soon. Yeah.
It's not a one-time effort, basically. The last step in the make process ensures that this can become indeed a sustainable improvement lasting over time. And we constantly have to go back to defining what it is that we want to further improve because no organization is perfect. And in today's environment, there's too much variation in the environment itself so that we can't just rest on our laurels and say that we're done, basically. To give you an example of how this was applied in my case from personal experience in a bottling company. Some of you may or may not know, but when you go and put some money into a vending machine, the product drops and you move away, but you may not really know what's happening behind the scenes in terms of getting the product there, or what happens if the money that you put in doesn't really turn into a product. You kind of end up with a jammed coin or something like that. And what goes on in the service aspect of this vending machine. Now, bottling companies usually provide these vending machines themselves, and they are also responsible for the fulfillment of the goods within the vending machines, and also they are responsible for servicing these machines. Now, in one of the companies that I worked with, the vending division in general had all sorts of problems with the way these machines were serviced. There were too many customer complaints, and some of the customer complaints required multiple visits to the vendor site, and this is called a split service, meaning one single service couldn't take care of the problem, and multiple visits had to be made in order to remedy the problem. Now, the complaints were also along the lines of, well, we call, we don't get an answer, or somebody doesn't show up in less than 24 hours. So there was this confusion around the expectations as to when a service person would come and repair the vending machine. So as you can see, there are multiple issues that this company had to deal with. And when we went in to improve things, we took an integrated approach, and this is the way all companies should think, because Six Sigma is not about targeting one specific function, unit, or division within an organization and just working with them. It is about understanding how the different functions, units, departments tie together, and how they pass information from one to another, or how the transactional flow basically happens. And that's, again, one of the basic principles of Lean Six Sigma, understanding the process flow.
Right.
So one of the first things that we did was, of course, we looked at the customer complaints, but we didn't just go into problem solving. We first had to understand how the customer experience flowed through the entire organization, because with very specialized units and personnel, what ends up happening is everybody kind of sees their own partition within that flow. And they hardly think about how the handover is done or what the ultimate customer experience feels like. Because somebody going to the site to repair the vending machine, for example, could have no idea as to what the customer encountered during the first call that they made to the call center. So tying all of that and making sure that representatives from each one of these different divisions are present in the discussions is crucial. Again, one of the principles of Lean Six Sigma is to have that kind of inclusion in the process. So studying process flows requires everyone involved. being present there as a stakeholder. And everyone needs to understand their own interest in why this is being done. So the next step of the process was to look at the service response times and how many times, for example, a customer ran out of product at the vending machine and how responsive the company was in terms of fixing the problem. And a lot of those things come back to analyzing, for example, the routes that these trucks take in services and the number of response calls that get dispatched to these people serving the vending machines. And literally, as an outsider, what you're required to do, you have to do as part of this process, is to be with these people. So sit down with the call center representative taking the calls. Understand how that telephone conversation translates into data that starts flowing through the organization. How that service request is actually mapped over by a dispatcher to a service unit. And from that point on, you need to ride with that service technician throughout the day, visiting these sites and watching actually how certain things take place. Just to give you a striking example, I was with one of these service trucks, and when we went to the site, of course, the problem was about one of the buttons not dispensing the product, so the technician was looking at that. But I also noticed that there was this bottom portion in the vending machine that housed the actual condenser, and it was very dirty. It had candy wrappers in it. It had leaves, dry leaves and twigs and branches and dust and dirt. And the service technician, of course, is only responsible for moving in, fixing the problem, and then moving out. But there's an opportunity for improving the experience as far as the customer is concerned.
Yeah.
So, just carrying a little bit of extra equipment with you to carry out this sort of maintenance is one opportunity that this process brings, because you have to have that integrated, mentality brought into the company when you're doing quality improvement. It's not just about one particular dimension of the customer experience. It's about improving every single aspect of it. And then what we started doing, of course, was we started identifying all these areas where service requests were not being met. And in many cases, it turned out that the customers did not have service level agreements, SLAs, as they refer to, which means setting the customer's expectations straight with respect to how soon they might be able to be visited by a service technician. So similar to many of the other airline and credit card programs, you have now established a gold standard, a silver standard, and a bronze standard. And depending on your service level agreement, you should expect a visit by the service technician, or you should expect your problem to be resolved within a finite window. So that was one improvement that came about as a result of this. The second thing is the dispatch process. When you don't have a methodology, when you don't have a system, you have basically some human beings there doing their best, trying to understand what the service request is and picking a service technician to go out and deliver. So automating that, making sure that the data information was captured properly and then transferred over to the service technicians, again using these statistical methods, improved our ability to get the right service technician with the right equipment to the right vending machine at the right time within the service level agreement. So these are all examples of how you start with a definition of what you want to improve. I want to improve the time it takes to answer a call. I want to improve the time it takes to visit a customer. I want to improve the time it takes to fix a machine. And then once you define that, you measure it. How long is it taking now? Oh, it's taking an hour and a half. Well, I don't think that's good enough, because within the statistical method, we need to reduce it to 30 minutes. So you have these tangible objectives against which you measure progress, and you work until you get there, basically. And then once you get there, of course, as we spoke about, the most important thing is to make sure that you communicate what it takes to achieve that objective, so that it's culturally ingrained in people's minds and they're aware of it. The process now becomes habit. So that's a fairly short, but I think effective example of...
It's very effective, and it parallels nicely to healthcare. You can see why we borrowed those concepts in healthcare to make improvements of our own. All right. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Ekmekci. I appreciate that you took time out of your schedule to help provide some clarity around this topic. The students certainly appreciate it as well.
Thank you very much. I am very appreciative of the opportunity and would like to thank you too.